Good day, people. So, today we are going to see the topics in Unit 3: Object Orientation, Design Issues for OOP Languages, Implementation of Object Oriented Constructs. Right? In the next class, we will see about concurrency and semaphores. So, the first one is object orientation. Here we are going to take this concept from Java programming language. Object orientation. In procedural programming, we concern about procedures or methods which will perform operations on the data. Right? In object oriented programming language, the programmer we create objects so that the object can call the relative or respective class which holds data and methods. Right? In procedure, we used methods, which holds the data. In object oriented programming, class holds the data and methods, and objects are created to access them. Object oriented programming has several advantages over procedural programming. The first one is OOPs are really faster and easier to execute because each and everything is interconnected. Message passing is done very clearly. It can provide a clear structure for the programs. It's very understandable. The complexity of the program is reduced when compared to the procedural programming, but it has own disadvantages which we will see in later. It helps to keep the data, the code, that means to keep the Java code dry. Don't repeat yourself, and makes the code easier to maintain, modify and debug. We don't have to repeat the codes in Java because of the object concept. It makes it possible to create full reusable applications with less code and shorter development time. If you create an application, you can easily modify that application to a newer version in very short span of time. It can achieved only in Java. It can be achieved only by this OOPS concept, object oriented programming structure concepts, or object oriented programming concepts. If you are creating an application, it may get down after few years because of the newly introduced adwares. So the programmer needs to update the existing application to a better one. So the existing code needs to be compatible with the newer ones. Java is a evergreen language. Remember this word. Java is a evergreen language. In 1990s, Java, when introduced, they thought it's very complex. But now it's very basic because of the declarative programming structure. Object oriented programming is a mixed one. It can be imperative. It holds lot of built-in functions to make object-oriented programming comes under declarative paradigm methodology. Okay. Example: class, fruit, objects, apple, banana, mango. Any fruits can be objects because lot of fruits will taste sweet. Class car, objects, Volvo, Audi, Toyota. There are lot of manufacturers, but the weight of the car doesn't change. If you take Audi Q7, if it's shown 1470 kg curb weight, then each and every the particular model Q7 with LDI or VDI something, right? 1470 means 1470 for each and everything. The attribute never change, but the braking system, disc pads, tire width can change according to the models. It comes under functions. A class is a template for objects, and an object is an instance of a class. Right? Class is a template for objects. Everything comes under this template. Okay, these are all models, and this is called car. And object is an instance of a class. It's one of the instance. This object is one of the instance of this car. When the individual objects are created, they inherit all the variables and methods from the class. So that's the thing I told earlier. Car weight, color, braking system, each and everything is carried over from the class car. Object-oriented programming system. Object means a real world entity, such as a pen, it can be a chair, table, computer, watch, anything. Right? Everything is object. The chair is an object. Spectacles is an object. Headphones is an object. Right? Shirt is an object. Object-oriented programming is a methodology or paradigm to design a program using classes and objects. In this paradigm or in this methodology, we need to use classes and objects without fail. By using the classes only, we can access the data or methods inside the particular class. There is no other way. It simplifies software development and maintenance by providing some concepts, like few concepts: object, class, inheritance, polymorphism, abstraction, encapsulation, message passing, binding. Right? Object and classes, we already discussed about these. Inheritance: if there are two classes, a class can access another class's data and members, that is called functions. Okay, so you are accessing me through your HOD. Your HOD created an object for all your classes. An object is me for your subject, that is programming language. Kanagaraj handling the subject named object-oriented programming or programming language. Some other teacher named A, B, C handling other set of classes or subjects. Here the class represents your HOD. You are all members. I am accessing you. I am feeding you. I am giving content to you. Right? The same class. Right? If you are going to the next course, you are studying BE Computer Science. Someone is studying BE Civil Engineering or Chemical Engineering. There is one Rajkumar. Here one Rajkumar. There one Rajkumar. Right? That Rajkumar have some data and objects. So, if that Rajkumar, the second Rajkumar, right, needs to access me, he can access directly. He cannot access directly me. He can access only through my class named Rajkumar 1. Okay. For BE programming language, BE computer science programming language, Rajkumar 1 is class. For BE civil engineering, Rajkumar 2 is a class. The class 2 can access class 1. So the class 2 can access me through the class 1. That called inheritance. In another way, you are all inheriting some functionalities from your parents, your father or mother. You are inheriting some of the features: eye, mouth, nose, ear, height. These are all properties of that class, parent class. So you are getting inherited from that parent class. You are a child class. Parent class, child class. Superclass, subclass. Okay. Inheritance. The next one is polymorphism. I am handling your class for programming language. If I take BE computer science 3rd year or 4th year, I am taking another programming language paper for them, then I am a polymorphism. I am taking class for you and I am also taking class for them. I am taking different classes for different people. So that's called polymorphism. Water is one of the polymorphism, right? If you place the water inside a mug, it takes the mug shape. If you put the water in tumbler, right, it takes the shape of the tumbler. That's called polymorphism. Changing its way of approaching according to the position it holds. The next one is abstraction. Abstraction means showing the relevant data, not showing the entire data. Encapsulation means hiding the data. Okay. So Java classes and objects. So this is same as the previous one, but I just want to convey in some other way. Java is an object-oriented programming language. Everything in Java is associated with classes and objects along with its attributes and methods. Attributes means variables. Methods means functions. Okay. In Java, everything is associated with classes and objects along with its attributes and methods. For example, in real life, a car is an object. The car has attributes, variables such as weight and color, and methods such as drive and brake. Everyone is driving, everyone using the brake, everyone using accelerator. Action, okay, that's called method. You are using a sudden brake, you are using a clutch, you are using a brake, you are using an accelerator, you are changing the gears. These are all events. The color, the weight, the things is, that's a variables, will change according to the model of the car, but the methods won't change. Okay, a class is like an object constructor or a blueprint for creating objects. A class is a blueprint for creating objects. If you want to create object, you need to know about that particular class, then only you can create a relevant object. Otherwise you will mess the whole thing. Creating a class. To create a class, you need to use the keyword class. This is main.java. Okay, we need to save this file as main.java. We are having a class named called main and we are having a value. This is a simple example to create a class with a simple variable. Here we tell attributes. This class hold only one attribute. Create an object. In Java, an object is created from a class. We have already created the class called main, right? Here we already created the class called main. So now we will use this to create objects. Okay, to create an object of main, specify the class name followed by the object name and use the keyword new. Okay, so this is the syntax and this is an example for the same class, and we are having the same variable. We are creating an object over here. This is class name and this is also class name. For this class name, we are creating an object which is a new object to this class called main. Okay, here we are calling, we are accessing the object using the object name myobj.x. By using this object name only, we can access this classes variable. Okay, here we need to tell like attributes. So there are a lot of design issues in object oriented programming. Exclusivity of objects or subclasses, subtypes, implementation and interface, inheritance, type checking and polymorphism, single and multiple inheritance, allocation and deallocation of objects. The first one is exclusivity of objects. So there are a lot of issues in object oriented programming structure, advantages and disadvantages, right? Everything is an object. Without an object, we cannot access anything. So it provides elegance and purity, but it slows down the operations for simple objects. Adding objects to a complete typing system. So there will be fast operations on simple objects, but there will be results in a confusing type system, because everything considered as an object. I think that will be another problem, right? Everything is considered as object. It's called type system, right? But actually what the type system does is it reduces the error. Okay, it reduces the runtime error or compile time error. It reduces the error. The type system reduces the error as well as it controls the flow of the program. Include an imperative style typing system for primitives but make everything else objects, right? We consider everything is an object. So what's the advantage is fast operations on simple objects and a relatively small typing system, but there will be lot of confusions over the objects because there are a lot of objects in a simple program. Okay, or subclasses, subtypes. If you are creating a subclass for a class, the relationship gets confused. Okay, the relationship gets confused between a parent class object and an object of the subclass. That's called method overriding. Okay, you need to know about method overriding. I am discussing about the problems and I am giving the solution. You need to check about method overriding. So how is enforced? So using the method overriding you can do that. So inheritance create the major problem. So why we need to have the inheritance, right? So that's the issue in object oriented programming. Implementation and interface inheritance, these create a major issue, right? It's same as method overriding. Okay, if you learn about method overriding you can easily understand about these two concepts: interface inheritance and implementation inheritance. Okay, subclass can only see parents interface. Advantages: preserves encapsulation, because the another subclasses cannot access the grad parents interface. Okay, so it preserves encapsulation, but it actually results in inefficiency, right? What we are using in inheritance, we need to access the content. If you are using interface inheritance, then this problem is created. Implementation inheritance, subclass can see both the interface and the implementation of parent. Okay, implementation means definition. Okay, declaration, definition. Declaration means declaring the function or declaring the method. Definition means what it happens inside the method or function. That's called implementation. Okay, you are telling like I'm going to do, right? That's definition. When you are properly sitting and doing that task, then it's called implementation. Now we can understand difference between declaration and implementation. Declaration means declaring the interface or declaring the method, but implementation means definition, right? Definition of the method, what it happens inside the method. So these two are disadvantages. Changes to parent class require recompilation of subclasses and sometimes even modification of subclasses. The subclasses which are inheriting, right, which get problem. If you are implementing something in the parent class, parent interface. But if you are changing the implementation inside an subclass, okay, there will be no issues. But if you are changing in superclass, the implementation part in superclass, you are changing something, it creates problem inside the subclass implementation part. Okay, subclass can introduce errors in parent. Even the subclass, right, may create some problems in parent class because of the implementation issues in inheritance concept. Type checking and polymorphism. So dynamic type checking is very costlier methodology, and it actually takes a lot of time to detect the errors. But there is no other way we need to do that. Polymorphism may require dynamic type checking of parameters and return value, because it changes according to the time and the way of implementation. So it constantly check the value of parameters and its return value. Okay, so it takes a lot of time, so it requires time, so that the program with the polymorphism and without the polymorphism, with the polymorphism takes much more time than without polymorphism programming. Okay, if overriding methods are restricted to having the same parameter types and return type, the checking can be static. So to avoid this problem, okay, we can have the same parameter types and return type, so that it can be static and we don't have to check again and again for the new errors. Okay, single and multiple inheritance. So inheritance means inheriting some functionalities and behaviors from superclass to subclass. Disadvantages of multiple inheritance. Superclass, subclass 1, subclass 2. Subclass 2 can access superclass, overriding the flow of subclass 1. So that's the major disadvantage. So the multiple inheritance is avoided in Java. In C++ we are having multiple inheritance, but in Java they stopped utilizing the multiple inheritance due to the flow of data, and it makes potentially inefficiency, as well as dynamic binding cost more with multiple inheritance. If the inheritance moves on, it takes a lot of time. So the flow of data must be binded with the methods. So it takes a lot of time. So it wastes a lot of potentiality inside the program. Advantage. Sometimes it is extremely convenient and valuable. See the word sometimes. Sometimes means very few times. It may be useful for very few times, but in major time it only create problems. Okay, I think this is the last one. Okay, we are having another two. Allocation and deallocation of objects. So in C++, the scope of the variable is handled by the parentheses, that's flower braces actually. If the flower braces are closed, the variables will be deallocated. Here we are using alike or malike, right? We are having predefined functionalities to deallocate the objects, constructors, destructors, right? using constructor you can telling like we are creating some objects to that, and if you are using destructor it will destroy all the objects, all the variables available inside the classes. Okay, the live variables will be deleted at any time. Okay, allocation and deallocation of objects. From where are objects allocated? That's the major issue, right? So there is a stack way of objects. Stack allocated objects are more efficient, but then not all object references are uniform. Some object may require more data and some objects may require less data, so it creates problem. If they all live in the heap, references to them are uniform. I think here it represents references to them. So if they all lie in the heap means a pile. Okay, a pile. It's like if you are having a bag and you cannot find the desired thing inside the bag, so what you will do? You will do upside down. Everything inside the bag will get out, right? Will come out of the bag. It will form a heap of objects. Okay, so the way I show, right, that's called heap. If they all live in the heap, references to them are uniform, but there is performance penalty, right? There will be minor performance penalty if everything is in heap, because everything will be uniform. So if we need to access which one is better, right? Is allocation implicit or explicit? We can use constructor destructor in explicit. Implicitly, by the scope of the variable, right, the what you call the flower basis, right, it deallocates the content as well as the time, right? How is aliasing handled? Each and everything is a problem, right? So if you are doing some pointer, that's called object is a pointer, right? It's pointing to some classes. So how the alias is handled? It's very toughest job inside object oriented programming, right? So what is the semantics of assignment? So assigning, right, semantics. So literally the similar way of assignment, everything is getting confused, right? Everything is getting confused when we are using object oriented programming. Here even the assignment, if you are assigning an object to a particular class, so you are assigning some expression to a particular variable, right? There are a lot of meaning to them. One is pointer and another one is just a variable. So there are a lot of differentialities, there are a lot of different meanings, unambiguous. Okay, is deallocation explicit or implicit? Allocation, implicit allocation, deallocation, right? So as well as same as allocation, deallocation can be done as explicit as well as implicit using some functionalities called constructor and destructors, right? Constructor is used to allocate, deallocation is done by using destructors. Dynamic and static binding. So if a data passing from one class to another class through inheritance, the binding methodology works. There are two types of binding, dynamic and static, and this is one of the major concept of object oriented programming, binding concept. Should all binding of messages to methods be dynamic, right? So we are doing some programs. The values are passed through the methods via the objects. So each and everything is getting binded. Sometimes it becomes static, and if you are using interface implementation or inheritance implementation, then there will be a lot of problems. So we have to move to the dynamic binding concept, right? If everything is dynamic binding, or if everything is static binding, it becomes inefficient. Sometimes the class might act to be a static, and sometimes it needs to act as a dynamic. If the problem is continued as a singular one, it can avoid the advantages of dynamic binding, as well as it will become inefficient. Okay. Implementing object-oriented constructs. So I gave few lines inside these notes. You can refer these notes. Okay. So class inheritance records store the state of an object. So class instance records, it's actually a memory representation of the instance variables of class instance. Okay. So if the object is created for a class, the variable, right, the variable is act like a instance variable, and it needs to be represented by the class instance record. This class instance record stores the state of every object inside the programming during the compile time or runtime, whatever may be, right? This class instance records holds each and every object's state, and this is a static structure and is built at a compile time. Okay. If it's been dynamic binding, it will comes under dynamic, right? But here we are considering only static. If there is a change in inheritance implementation or interface implementation part, then it will create problem, right? That we are already discussed. Okay. So remember, lot of things are static and something are dynamic. You cannot mix those things. This is a static structure and is built at compile time. Every class written in a program has its own CIR. Each and every class will have one CIR, and every subclass copies the parent CIR. So here you can look, if a subclass is created and during the compilation time itself, the subclass creates a copy of the parent CIR, so that it won't have to create a new CIR to take up more memory. The second point is same, right? If a class has a parent, the subclass instance variables are added to the parent CIR. I think it's a little confusing, but this is okay, right? Very convenient to learn. Static methods do not need to get involved with the CIR, but dynamic methods do, right? I already told you there might be some problems, right, if dynamic binding is working upon that programming. Okay. Static methods do not get involved with the CIR, but dynamic methods do. The methods can be two types. One is static methods and another one is dynamic methods. Binding is differs. Okay, binding means mixing up the data with methods and attributes. We are passing the attribute value through a object. That's called binding. Here methods. If you are giving a static parameter, then there is no issue. The existing CIR will continue. But if the parameter value changes according to the program, it needs to access the CIR to update the CIR. Okay. A pointer is formed to the code of a method, which then connects to the CIR's corresponding pointer code. Okay, a pointer is used to access the relevant method, right? So that it can access the corresponding CIR's pointer code. Okay, the list of dynamic bound methods only needs to be stored once, no matter how many instances of that class form. In the compilation itself, the dynamic bound methods are created as a list one, and these instances will not change. Okay, so that the value only changes inside the CIR. An instance CIR only needs one list pointer to enable finding the called methods. This list memory structure is called the virtual method table. Okay, an instance CIR only needs one list pointer to enable finding the called methods. A CIR instance is created and it needs only one pointer which lists the list of called methods. Okay, this helps to access the called methods. This memory structure is said to be virtual method table. Virtual method table are used for dynamic binding. Okay, so now we get the concept called dynamic binding, right? Actually, the CIR is a static structure. So if you are doing dynamic binding, then we are moving to virtual method table. We will have two, right? One is for class instant records and another one is for virtual method tables. Class instant record stores the state of a object, and the VMT, virtual method table, holds a pointer to access the methods. Okay, and these are the few external links to these slides. The next one is Java threads. Actually, the next one is concurrency and I think concurrency and semaphores. Okay, concurrency and semaphores. But before that, we need to know about Java threads. Thread is actually used to do multiple operations at the same time. Our computer works in a threaded concept, multi-threading concept. At a point of time, two or more programs can run simultaneously. I can listen to a music, I can do some PPT, I can watch video at one side of the monitor, and I can use PPT or Word or Excel sheet in another set of another phase of the monitor, right? Another part of the monitor. Okay, this is called thread. Threads allows a program to operate more efficiently by doing multiple things at the same time, right? At the same time, two or more multiple operations can be done. Threads can be used to outperform complicated tasks in the background without interrupting the main program, right? The main program will continue on its own way. At the same time, the smaller tasks can get completed. If you are going to a food shop and you are ordering around 12 products, you are ordering biryani, chicken 65, chicken lollipop, mutton chukka, right? Sweet soda, desserts. You are ordering multiple things. You are a main thread, and I am coming over there and I am just ordering one lime soda for parcel. So what they do is, some people works on your parcel and another person works on my parcel. If there is a lag in your process, then the same thread can perform my task. Okay, this is the way the thread works, and this some of the external links for concurrency as well as semaphores. In the next video, we will look into the concurrency and semaphores. With that, we will complete the syllabus for the unit test or mid test 1. So thank you people. If you are having any doubts, you can mail me at kangaraj.in.ien@IEEE.org. So you can communicate through that email, or you can use the WhatsApp group to communicate with me. So that's it for us for today. See you in the next video. Bye.